You going?
Okay.
I didn't go to the hospital,
No.
but I got sick, yeah.
It's funny, everybody here.
So I'm going to call this meeting to order at 7:05 p.m. If you would all please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for a moment of silence afterwards, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. I do appreciate that. Okay, first on our agenda is the roll call. Jamie, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Queenie Barr.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson.
Here.
Trustee Betsy Harris.
Here.
Trustee Denise Bryan.
Here.
Trustee Ed Hallam.
Here.
Trustee Richard Cookhart. Trustee Nick Manning.
We have two out, but we still have a quorum, so we can continue on. Next on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented by staff.
I'll second.
Here we have a motion by trustee Ed Hallam and a second by trustee Denise Bryan to approve the agenda as presented by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the July 27th, 2022 meeting, and I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of July 22nd, 2020 as presented by staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Denise Bryan and a second by trustee Betsy Harrison to approve the minutes of July 27th, 2022 as presented by staff. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sound.
I'll abstain.
Okay.
I wasn't here.
Okay, motion still carries. Next is our Community Intervention Program update with Jim Spratman and the Montezuma County Emergency Manager. So Jim, the floor is yours.
Thanks, Mayor. You hear me all right? I got a real quiet voice. So, thanks for having us. Spend a little time. We've got some good news. So to start with, you're probably wondering why an emergency manager is like the program director of the Community Intervention Program, right? It's funny you ask. So, this started many a year ago. The brainchild of this is actually Justin back there. And I was going to tell him to stand up, and he's already standing up. And he started moving towards a program to help people in crisis. And with that, we finally got started, I think, the beginning of 21. We started doing a lot of planning meetings, and we spent a year putting this together. It is an emergency. It is a crisis in our nation and across the world. People with mental health issues, crisis, etc. So, what better place to put it than under the emergency manager, right? So that's where we're at. We're going to go over what the program is, real brief. Then we're going to go over kind of what we've been doing. And then we're going to present you where we're headed. And then the finances behind it. And yes, I'm not going to ask you for money. So we got a grant, and we're going to get into that here a little bit. So with that, I'm going to so I'm the program director. I get anything you have a problem with, come see me. Don't bother my people, come see me. And then we have program managers that are here tonight, Molly Rodriguez, Jesse Borden, and they run it below me, so I don't have to do anything. I don't do anything. These people are great. And the team, we're knocking it out of the park. So they're going to talk about what we've done and the amount of money that you gave us and how we used it and how we're so grateful to the board and to the town of giving us that money. I'm telling you, that made a big difference in our community. And what we're going to talk about is, this is a pilot program. We're going to see how it works, right? We're knocking it out of the park. It's a 3 months. We're going to give you in the last 3 months since we started this thing and where we've headed with it. So it's outstanding. I'm amazed. So I'm going to introduce Program Manager.
We're going together.
Going together? All right, both of you get up.
I'll stand next to you here. We're without our PowerPoint, so to the paper we go.
I tell you what, why don't you start with like an overview of the program from the folks and what the program's here for and things, and then I will step in and kind of give the first responders aspect of it.
Okay. So you've moved it on me. So my name is Molly Rodriguez. My title with Access Health System is that I'm the Director of Residential and Crisis Services. I've worked with Access Health for 10 years, and I've been in crisis ever since. And that's literal. I promise, I'm okay. So the work that I've done since I came up through Access Health System has been as an emergency service provider. I've overseen the behavioral health programming for crisis services, expansion throughout the years, and behavioral health services in our ATU, which is our acute treatment unit. I've had the pleasure of being the architect of the core program in Durango, which is a co-responder program pairing law enforcement with a clinician. And then also have had the pleasure of helping to build this team. So this is our community intervention program. We pair an EMT through Cortez Fire under contract through emergency management and a behavioral health provider through Access Health System to respond to really specific calls. When we started to investigate how we were going to make this program, we had to figure out the data. Why are we doing this? What are our goals? And the thing that stood out the most to me, having worked in crisis for so many years, is if we're not there, if there's no behavioral health provider around, the calls are still going to come in, that there are behavioral health crises in the community regardless if there's a team to respond to them, and that within Montezuma County, and really every county in the state, there's a need for a response that is appropriate to the type of crisis. And so we know that there are more behavioral health challenges than ever in our counties and in our state. We know that our youth are facing new and unusual challenges. We built this program as the pandemic was occurring and on the tail of it settling. We recognize that there are changes in law enforcement that restrict their ability to respond to certain types of calls. We recognize that behavioral health is criminalized largely in this country, and it places people who are at risk at a higher risk. It puts a big strain on the justice system, and we know that Montezuma County residents deserve better. We have some really wonderful resources in this community. We have private providers, practitioners, public health services, Department of Human Services programming. But if you don't know how to navigate the complexities of those systems, it can be really hard to get help. So that is why we built this program. Would you like me to keep going?
You're stealing my stuff.
Your thunder is my thunder.
So my name's Jessica Borden, Jessie Borden. I'm a captain with the Cortez Fire Protection District, and I've been in the emergency services for 20 years now. And in the time that I've been in the emergency services, I have personally seen a significant lack of mental health services in the field for people. And I originally from southeastern Ohio, started my full-time career in the fire service in Columbus, Ohio. So we had big hospitals and big mental health centers and things like that. And then 5 years ago, I came out here and worked for the fire districts in this area. And one thing that really was alarming to me was our youth suicide rate. And there's nothing more depressing for a first responder than to run on a child who has chosen to take their own life because we didn't have services for them. And so that is one reason why I am a huge advocate for this program and for the core team in Durango, is that and I've seen it since this team has been in service for the last 3 months of interacting with kids and interacting with folks who are in crisis, and also people that we run on a regular basis, that we're going like, these people aren't going to ask for help. And then I see our CIP team go and interact with these people, and initially these people are like, absolutely not, get off my property and things like that. And then they do a follow-up phone call a few days later and they're like, I'm ready to get help. And I've seen that multiple times in the last 3 months. So it's been awesome. So to tell you a little bit about the team's operation, they are, and then I'll kind of get into how this helps us as first responders and hospitals in this area. So they respond to welfare checks. They do suicide prevention, assessment, and intervention, conflict resolution and family support, homelessness support, and resourcing. So if someone is in a housing crisis and it is exacerbating behavioral health issues, then they can help. Basically it's that whole community approach of our team, our behavioral health specialists can go and reach out to different agencies that may not necessarily know about this person and say, hey, this person needs help, and they can get them the appropriate assistance that they need. And so our behavioral health specialists will respond on calls with the EMT and basically provide a basic mental health assessment of how this person's doing. And then after they do that initial introduction and assessment, then they do follow-up afterwards. And I've seen Charlie reach out to people as far as a week a week after that initial call. So it's been really awesome to see the response from people in our community that need this help. And so resource connection and referrals, we kind of talked about that with the communication between agencies. And then also first responders have the ability that if the team is, because currently the team is available during daylight hours, Monday through Friday. And so, but we have a referral system to where if Cortez Fire or the Sheriff's Office or Cortez PD or Mancos Marshal go and interact with someone and they say, boy, they could really benefit from a follow-up with CIP, then they can fill out a form, send it to the team, and then the team will go and follow up with that person the next day. And so the first responders can go and say, hey, we see this, and we can get that person paired up with the team. So a big impact with this program is not only getting people to the help that they need, because the ER, the emergency room, is not always the place for the best care. And so our team is able to go there, assess that person in the field, and then get them to, if they do need to go, the EMTs can rule out a medical emergency. So if they do have some medical aspects of the call, then they can go and be transported by EMS to the emergency room, or they may go to the acute treatment unit in Durango. As a first responder, we spend a lot of time on scenes with folks who are having a behavioral health crisis. Might be suicidal ideations, and it's very challenging for us because we have minimal training in dealing with patients that are having schizophrenic episodes and things like that. We're if it's broke, we're trained to fix it, and behavioral health is much more complicated than that. So we end up spending a lot of time on scenes, and since the team has been active since May 2nd. I've seen law enforcement goes and calls the team comes, basically we assess, make sure that the patient's comfortable, and then we'll go and say, law enforcement, we're good. And so then we can get law enforcement back in service so they can take another call. And before, they may be on scene for an hour with that person, just talking to them and trying to figure out the process of how to get that person to appropriate resources. And so that has been a huge benefit. And then also, fire and EMS were always called to suicidal ideation calls. And now law enforcement gets there because they always clear the scene, and then CIP comes in and rules out whether there's a medical need or not. So fire and EMS aren't being called to those specific incidents and are able to take other calls that are, more appropriate for our skills. And so we talked about, people that we run on a regular basis. Like now they're getting help that is the appropriate type of services that they need. And so we're getting less what we call frequent flyer calls.
Or friendly faces.
Or friendly faces. Yes, that's the difference between behavioral health and frontline emergency services. Molly's always so positive. The other really cool thing I've seen with this program is I've seen that it's a great conduit for community relations between community partners, stakeholders, and so like talking to the hospital and saying like, how can we fix this? Talking to law enforcement and saying like, what issues are you having? And there's a great communication happening between all these different agencies where Montezuma County's always been pretty darn good about going and talking, like agencies talking to each other, but I've seen that get better in the last 3 months, where we're talking about things that we've never talked about before, and everybody is using the CIP program, so we all have that input and communicating about the people that we're interacting with in the community. So it's great for those community relations between agencies and our residents. So, okay. That's the first responder aspect of this.
You might have noticed that both Jesse and I have been using the word behavioral health crisis. And the reason why we use that word is because it's not just one thing. When we're talking about behavioral health, we're talking about, yes, diagnosable mental illness. We're also talking about substance use. We're talking about grief and loss and conflict. We're talking about the things that impact us in our everyday life that make us behave a certain way. It's how we're doing emotionally in our world. And so a crisis is a crisis is a crisis. What's really cool about these kind of programs and our program, the CIP team, is that we've never had this before. Behavioral health has always existed in a silo of community mental health centers. It has never been tied into 911. The first responders do very similar work than what crisis teams do, but we get separate information from separate venues and we miss opportunities. And being involved in the emergency response system with a team of experts in their field allows us to tailor the responses to the behavioral health crises that's presenting. You may know that people who have behavioral health crises are often identified through 911 systems under criminal codes or nature kind of codes that describe it as being abnormal behavior. So if you've ever heard calls over the radio, it's things like suspicious, trespassing, harassment, menacing. But what it is PTSD, trauma, schizophrenia, mania. Not all the time, but sometimes. And now we have this alignment of being able to see a person as they are and say, okay, how can we solve this issue now, and how can we support this person moving forward? If you've ever had the unpleasant experience of having to call 911, you know that the people respond swiftly and urgently, and they solve the immediate crisis and then they leave. Our team doesn't do that. We stick around, we help support people, and then we follow up day after day to help ensure that not only has the crisis decelerated, but has it been resolved? Have they decided to accept referrals and supports? I can tell you all these things and you're like, all right, Molly, sure. But let me tell you about just one particular call that we went on in Montezuma County. And the reason I am going to give this example is because it hits on all the different spheres that make our community whole. So there was an individual in the community who would fit the demographic of a senior citizen. And this person had had not the very best life. They had experienced disconnect from their family. They were essentially homeless. They had been the victim of a violent crime, domestic violence, and were addicted to substances. We encountered them after being homeless on the streets, needing medical assistance, and in a very vulnerable place. Adult Protective Services had been involved at some point, but really couldn't do anything. We had emergency responders respond to this person in the past, but the immediate crisis was stabilized and they needed to follow up. Law enforcement had been involved because they were a victim, and so they had worked to try to connect this person and, couldn't. But the day that our team got involved was the day that something was ready to change, and this person accepted help both to stabilize their basic needs. They were reconnected with family members. They had chosen sobriety, and within a matter of 4 days, they were back with their family and being stabilized in an assisted living facility with a supportive primary care provider. That's a lot of work in a very short amount of time with a person who was struggling with pretty much everything you could struggle with at one time. And that is the power of a collaborative team. So you might want to know some numbers. We've gone on 157 calls for service as of the beginning of the month. 65 of those were initial calls, meaning they came from dispatch specifically or were called by a first responder. 31 of those resulted in primary care calls. We did things like de-escalation, community resourcing, general support, rapport building. We identified what we call, in the therapy world, we do motivation for treatment, because not everybody's ready. And there's a big emphasis on us respecting the autonomy of individuals and their ability to choose when and how they get the services that they would like to get. About 70% of people agreed to follow up. Some people got it even if they didn't want it. And a significant portion of the people we responded to were uninsured. Of all of those calls, we as a team took approximately 4 people to the hospital. The goal is to do treatment in community to keep people connected to community because this is their home. We do not want to be sending people to emergency rooms. It creates extra burden that's not needed. We also noticed that having our EMTs, of course, in collaboration with clinicians, creates a whole person approach where sometimes chest pain, shortness of breath, and dizziness is a heart attack, and sometimes it's panic. And so helping to figure that out. Sometimes psychosis is actually a diabetic crisis because someone's blood sugar is too high, and we've seen that. Sometimes psychosis is hypoxia because they're not getting enough oxygen to their brain and need to be treated at an emergency room, but they look suspicious. So that's the kind of work that can be done when we're collaborative. I have slides about intervention details, the things that we're tracking, what kinds of calls, what are the clinical issues, what are the intervention types. And when we talk about this, it's important to just take away that it's never just one thing. It's very rarely just one thing. Sometimes we say, oh, it's because of all the drug use, or oh, it's because of all the, and I'm going to say the word that we don't like saying, the crazy people. But it's not just one thing. It's about a whole person system and being able to identify the needs in that moment and address each one in a priority response. And now Jim Spratlin is going to talk to you about money.
Now you know why I have such a great team, right? They talk better than me. They're smarter. That's what you do. Get smart people under you and then leave, but they won't let me leave. So, and better looking. Yeah. So, I don't disagree with that at all. So we sent, all the trustees have got a copy of this packet. We're not going to go over that packet, but it gives you a breakdown of the budget and what I'm going to be presenting to the commissioners, because the budget does go through the county. And so I have that packet for you. It shows pretty much where we're headed. So
it also shows you the specific numbers of calls per area. So how many in Cortez, how many in the county,
yep.
How many in Mancos specifically, Dolores, and Lebanon.
And the PowerPoint that we have, I'll get it to Heather and she'll send it out to you. It's kind of what we're talking about. So for 2022, you guys gave us $28,580. It was outstanding. We broke it down by percentage of population. And we have used your money for 3 months. Well, actually, a little prior to, because we hired people, we had to train them, we had to buy equipment, etc. But you're down to $20,763. We're still using your money. You can't have it back. Well, yeah, I guess you could, but we don't want to give it back yet. So with that, at the bottom of one of your sheets, depends on how it's organized, it's the community intervention program breakdown and specifically benefits and everything that we're doing. And in there, it talks about this fund that we received. It's CARES money. It's actually called State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund, which is CARES money that everybody received, and everybody gave us a certain percentage. That has to be allotted to a program of some sort by December of 2024. Sorry. And it has to be spent by December of 2026. So we're very grateful you gave us that. Well, I have some great news. Our grant writer was able to put together, and I'm going to have her stand up in a minute. Our grant writer was able to find us a grant that's good for a year. And I'm anticipating, well, it starts July 1st. We're on a call to make sure it does start July 1st and not when we sign the contract. You know how that goes. But July 1st of this year, and it goes until June 30th of next year. We got $386,014. So my grant writer, Nicole Glazer, stand up. Thank you. Outstanding job. Well, it's the county's grant writer, but she's mine tonight. So just to let you know. So with that, we're gonna implement that funding. It's not specific to every line item that we use. So we still need your funding to help us through with vehicle maintenance, repair and maintenance, buying extra radios, having to pay a certain amount of the M&A that, you know, both departments work on for people. So we still need that funding. So projecting it out, I'm supposed to be a finance guy now. So projecting it out, I'm looking at $296,676, or close enough, $600. So $296,000. All right, let's just stick with that. And I'm going to ask the commissioners. Each commissioner's been at every one of these meetings. I'm not going to point them out, but we all know who we are. And I'm going to go before them with the budget because we're underneath the county, and I'm going to present my budget that you have in front of you, and then I'm going to ask them to roll this funding, the CARES funding, into next year. What it's going to do is it's going to allow us to continue on from June 30th for the rest of the year to finish out a year. So we're good for next year. Then our grant writer was able to fandangle a deal with Senator Hickenlooper and Senator Bennett, filed a congressional bill that's for mental health, etc. And they actually put Montezuma County in there. They named us for $361,000. And it's in Congress. I think the bill's being almost finally written. Then, of course, it's got to jump through the hoops, right? Congress has to pass it, the Senate, and then the president signs it. But when that comes out, it may come out at the first of the year, it may come out later. Usually legislation goes through their hoops around this time of year anyway. So we're hopeful that if we get that, and it's not specific to just 2023. I was told it could be used for 2024. So my glass, when your glass is half full and you pour it into a smaller glass, what do you got? It's full. I'm going for full here. This is awesome. If we can get this, we're good for the next 2 years. And this funding that you have, that you've given us, we're going to try to roll it in, and it will be helping us throughout the year, depending on that next grant, what it supplies us. So I think we're good to go. The program was supposed to be a pilot program, and then, you know, we would have to seek funding. Well, 3 months of pilot program, and you just saw what we can do. I mean, it's beyond all expectations. So I'm really thrilled about that. One of the things that we have done, and I'll just end here. Our mission statement says, I have to read it. We recognize the power of collaboration and the need to enhance the emergency response system, because it's never been in there, to better serve those experiencing social and behavioral health crisis. Through integrated community-based response, we offer opportunities for proactive engagement, harm reduction, intervention, and effective referrals. Well, you heard from the experts, we've done it. We've also, our priorities were to develop an appropriate response, including treatment, referrals, engagement, prevention. We did it. We're supposed to, one of the other priorities is to engage mental health in the emergency response system. We did it. The other is to reduce unnecessary response burden for law enforcement, EMS, and fire. And as a retired law enforcement officer of 30 years, I don't look like it, but I am, I spent more than 1 hour on these calls. We spent 5, 6, 8 hours on these calls when we should be doing something else. Not that we don't want to help people, but that wasn't our expertise. And this program is making a difference for us. So we want to strengthen, sustain, and then scale this program. These are our next steps. This is where we're headed. I'm a planner guy, so I don't believe in planning a year at a time. I like 5 years out. I want to make sure that stuff's working. So we want to strengthen this. We want to build upon our current success of the team, build on the partnerships, you can always build on partnerships, and enhance services to the community. We want to sustain, secure sustainability sources, not just necessarily grants and hunting grants all the time. We want to sustain that. We want to be able to keep this thing going through community support, maintain fiscal responsibility. And then we want to scale this, create efficiencies that allow us to expand the program, to go maybe, 12 hours a day, 15 hours a day, work on the weekends where we're still going to get another clinician to do that, and not have to deal with referrals, right? Expand this thing, make it bigger, make it better. And as we continue to prove its worth, make sure it's a necessary community program. And we're seeing that now. So, I mean, I never thought I'd stand up here and say this, but I'm so proud to be over this thing, because
It's all the therapy you're getting.
it's the therapy I'm getting. Look at the experts. I've learned a lot. Yeah, I smile. I'm not as much crisis anymore. Yeah. But we've all been in crisis, all of us, right? And we've had to fight through it, and a lot of us are tough old birds, right? We just fight through it ourselves. Well, that's not the case anymore. People need help, and we're helping the community. And I'm amazed at what we're seeing, the success, and our team of people out there are dedicated. They love it. They love what they're doing. I mean, wouldn't you like to have employees that do that all the time? They're dedicated. They love what they're doing. By the way, boss, I'm dedicated and love what I'm doing. So that's it. Any questions?
Board have any questions?
Lot to absorb. Thank you. It's very intriguing.
Yeah, we love it, and we're going to figure out when we come in and give you, the next round, 3 months, 6 months, whatever you need. But we'll find out more as we move forward with this. But yeah, our grant writer, she's tough. She beats people up. So we're gonna get more grants, get something going.
Well, thank you.
We appreciate your support. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good work.
And Justin, thank you for all that you did. Okay, moving right along, we have audience business. I see some people came in late. Was there anybody who did not sign the sheet that wants to speak for audience business?
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.
I'll just call your name out, Danny, and then, under audience business, I want everybody to know that we make no decisions during audience business. We're here to listen. You're here to talk to the board, not the audience. and we will, everybody gets five minutes. So first on the list, I have James and Vicki Mestis. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is James Mestis. I live at 866 Riverside, and this is on the Resolution 3, Series 2022. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. Thanks for letting me come up and let you know about my frustrations on this. So we reviewed our past 6 months of water sewer statements from the town of Mancos and determined that during the winter and spring months, our usage was under the base 6,000 gallons, which is $78.70 per month. In the bill, the May bill was $104.94, which appeared to just be a normal summer bill. That's what we pay normally. And but then the June bill was $194.70, and the July bill was $201.42. That's when we determined there was an issue with our water and sewer statements. Town of Mancos seems to be charging double rates for the residents on the water and sewer, which is wrong and probably illegal. But it seems like the town board had thought with this Resolution 3 Series 2022 that all the water that come out of your faucet was going to go into the sewer, and which is not the case. So we're just wondering that if, let's see, where am I at here? Residents should be charged a flat rate for sewer. That's kind of how a lot of the other entities do it. They're not charged for the water going down unless it's metered. And just want to know if the town of Mancos is going to reimburse residents for the overcharge. And I know that's on the agenda tonight on the Resolution 15. So that's just my frustration. And I think there's probably others out there that are dealing with the same thing. And just thanks for letting me come up and
Thank you.
be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so our water is on the agenda tonight. So is anybody here to speak about something that is not on the agenda? Okay, then I will call everybody else up when we get to that agenda item, okay? So next, moving right along, is announcements. Heather, do you have any announcements?
Terry has comments.
On the 19th and 20th is our second townwide cleanup of this month. And on the 20th is the free yard waste drop off at the old dump on Route 39.
Okay, anybody else have any announcements? Justin? Heather, you don't? Any of the board members have any?
Nope.
Okay. All right, moving right along then, we go to the committee reports, Region 9.
Really nothing new since last time, other than, sorry to embarrass you, Jason, but Jason's gonna be like the alternate and be joining Region 9 too for the town, so thank you.
All right. And here, Gerald, you're up with the Montezuma County Commissioner update.
Good evening. I guess the big thing that's coming up as far as Montezuma County, we had a presentation from Ivor Energy this last Monday at our workshop. They have not actually submitted an actual project to us at the planning department, but they're talking about a solar farm west of Pleasant View that's going to take in approximately 2,200 acres of farm ground. It's going to be a very controversial project, to say the least. The other thing that's been going on is in the past, when the Canyon Ancient Indian Monument plan, they actually put in their plan that they were going to introduce sage grouse into the monument. They've actually went back and actually studied that and found out that they do not really have the sagebrush flats that it takes for actual sage grouse habitat. So they're actually going to write that out of their plan. So I think that's a very good thing for the surrounding private property owners, because a lot of those do not own the mineral and stuff below their ground, and some of them do, but if that sage grouse was there, it would restrict a lot of use of their own private property. Okay, there's a lot of restrictions with that. Even with your farming, can be restricted what you can do and what you can't do. Okay, so but they are going to take that out of their plan because they just don't have the habitat for it. It takes big sagebrush flats, areas of ground for their habitat, and they just don't have that. Now you get out toward Dove Creek, you get into a different situation out in Dolores County. They do have that habitat there, and there is some out there next to the state line. So we actually did a memorandum of understanding to work on that sagebrush habitat with the BLM. So we keep informed on it, and also about they're going to redo all their big game corridors too. So all of these things are going to influence what they will approve as far as oil and gas development on their property and other activities too, recreational activities. All these things are going to be impacted by these new studies that the BLM is going to do. That's the big things that are coming in. The other thing is, if any of you in this community, if we have the electricity go off again, like we did the other day, and like down in my house, it was off for 24 hours. If any of you are in a situation where you need help and need some electricity during that time, either call the sheriff's office or call Jim Spratton. Get on the list so we can help you, okay? Because some people can't have it being off that long. They have equipment that they need to run, and we can help you, okay? Don't do without. Okay, let us know. And you can actually get on the list with Jim that was here, the emergency manager, and if it goes off for that long, we will get you some help, okay? Just so everybody knows that.
Okay.
But that's a big thing, because we're putting all of our eggs in one basket when we just depend on electricity. So it's just like anything else. When you do that, you better be careful, because you better get some backup some way, because we just get dependent on it too much, and it can go down just like this. And myself, with all the vaccines and stuff I have for my veterinary practice at my house, I had a generator to run it, but if you didn't have one for as long as that went off, I would have lost thousands of dollars worth of vaccine. I can tell you that right now, if I didn't have a generator to run those coolers and stuff to keep that stuff cool. So if you need help, make sure you get on that list or call, even when it happens. Call and get a hold of us, and we will find some way to help you. Okay? Any questions?
Yeah, you're saying that at West Pleasant View, they're looking at a 2,200 acre solar farm. Is this all on private property?
It's all on private property.
So,
And they've got some of these leases, some of this ground has been leased for several years already. They've been anticipating this project for a while. This company actually has a lot of wind, solar development. They don't have any big solar farms in Colorado, but they have quite a few wind development up in the northeastern part of the state. And they've got a lot of development in Texas. They basically got a lot of development all over the western part of the United States, but they don't have any big solar farms in Colorado itself, but it's coming. So actually had a presentation out in Pleasant View the other night over this project. We wouldn't actually let them go into any specifics at the commissioner meeting because we didn't want to prejudge anything that was going on there. So all they could do is present what their company is, where they had projects and that sort of thing already, because we didn't want to prejudge anything. So anyway, that's the big thing that's coming from, and I'm sure before very long we're going to see some proposal come through the planning department, but just a matter of time. So,
Any other questions?
no,
Okay. Thank you, Gerald.
you bet.
Thank you, Gerald.
I'm gonna probably run because I got company.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Terry, can you adjust that cooler just a little bit? It is freezing up here.
Turn it up, or turn it down. I want colder.
No.
I mean, my teeth are chattering.
He's putting on his coat, so you know it's cold.
Okay, moving right along, we have our treasurer's report, the July bills and claims.
I actually have a correction on the second line, it should say July. Sorry about that.
What now? I'm sorry?
On the second line, it should say July up there, say June. Does anybody else have any questions or any?
I have one, circle is going to pull that page back up. How did I get that? Slow. There's one line item expense here for, the co-working space study for Telluride. It says alternate space Telluride. I guess, I don't know, I missed something there.
So we had paid them out a few months ago, but they were right in the middle of moving from Telluride to Grand Junction, and the check, I guess, got lost in the mail. So we canceled it, and then this is reissuing them. But this is the final, the end of our grant to them.
Okay.
We have a consultant.
Yeah. Right, yeah, I just thought it was over with. Okay, that was my.
It should be over with.
Now it is.
They don't lose this check.
Okay, that was it.
I would entertain the motion.
I move we approve the bills and claims with the change from June to July 2022.
Second.
We have a motion by trustee Cindy Simpson and a second by trustee Betsy Harrison to approve the bills and claims for the month of July 2022. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving right along then, the next item is our discussion and action items. First thing is Resolution 15, Series 2022, and Heather, would you introduce this?
Sure. We had discussion at the meeting on July 13th, and then we had a workshop on July 27th, and this resolution is a reflection of that, those two discussions and citizen feedback. What this resolution does is it changes the residential sewer rate. I'm only talking about sewer now. The residential sewer base rate to $50. There will be no overage charges moving forward for residential customers, commercial customers, and every other rate tier, commercial, government, churches, schools, that kind of thing, is a $65 base rate. And the sewer overage rates that were in effect before remain in effect moving forward. If the board approves this resolution as written, this will become effective August 1st of 2022, and it will be reflected on the bills that are mailed out on September 1 of 2022. So we bill a month earlier.
So I'm going to let people come and speak real fast, and then we will bring back to the board. So, Danny, I think you wanted to speak on this. If you would come to the podium and state your name and address.
And if y'all could make sure you speak into the microphone like that, that's where you need it, because I'm really having trouble hearing.
And address the board, not the audience.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Thank you, board. I was at your last meeting. I thought you guys did a great job.
Dan, can back up, would you give your name and your address,
Sorry.
please? That's all right.
Danny Pierce, 715 Riverside Avenue, Mancos. You guys did a good job. You had a tough problem. You talked about it. You came up with a good solution. What you tried to do was save the sewer plant, and that was an admirable thing. But your solution was killing the people in Mancos. Thank you for changing that. So I want to throw you another hot potato. You did really good there. So can we talk about water rates also? So I like Mancos. That's why I live here. But it's kind of a shabby looking town. If you drive around, there are some places with lawns. Riverside Avenue, which is where I live, is mostly dead lawns or weedscapes. It's not even xeriscapes. A lot of other places in town are the same way. And I think people would rather have grass or a garden than weeds given the choice. But I think our water structure is so expensive, people can't do it. We actually talked about moving when I got the last couple of water bills, which just, wow, just really knocked our budget out. But I'd like to see the town improve, get prettier, have lawns, flowers. Any other town we go to, Cortez, Durango, Breckenridge, Telluride, Ouray, has water, and they use it. We have a right as citizens to water we can afford. And it's not like this valley doesn't have water. We live at the source of the water. These hay farms around here spew out millions of gallons through those 4-inch side rolls that run 24/7. There's plenty of water. It's just too expensive for most people to use it. I've always had a high water bill. I want a nice yard. If I want rocks and cactus, I'll go to Arizona. That isn't a good solution for me. And I think given the choice, most people would have a lawn rather than weeds if they could afford it. I would just ask you to look at the water rates. Why it should only cost X pennies to do a gallon or 10 gallons or 1,000 gallons. I don't see why we have a sliding rate on that, particularly in the summertime when we're trying to grow grass or grow gardens. So I would ask that you look at the water rates and maybe give us a summer rate when people are trying to have a garden or grass. Thank you very much. You guys did a good job on the other problem. Work on this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh, a few years ago, you guys gave me a certificate. Certificate of recognition for my yard. Thank you. So I'd like to see more of this in the town. I love the town, but it looks like dog patch. Honestly, Riverside is nothing but weeds. I finally shamed my neighbor into cutting his weeds. Last year they were 5 feet tall. Maybe we could get a weed ordinance too. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, anybody else raise their hand that wants to speak? Okay, would you come to the podium, state your name and address for the record?
Tom is mostly non-verbal, so he won't be speaking. Thank you. My name is Sherry Romero, and I'm the caretaker for Tom Nunn, residing at 864 Riverside Avenue in Mancos. Having purchased a property in 2011, which had been a bank repo and in unmortgageable condition for nearly 3.5 years, we spent 2.5 years and piles of dollars to rehab the house, to include landscaping, which added 11 trees. We made eco-conscientious choices such as clover for landscape cover,
which is a pollinator attractant and more xeric than grass. We believe our landscaping is of value to the community. Thank you. It is of value to the community for living, for quality of life of everybody who walks up and down the street, and also for property values. We choose to invest in a living landscape. We also adhere to common sense watering schedules, sticking to watering only on even days before 10 o'clock a.m. and before 6 p.m. and not before 6 p.m. In 2019, this is Tom Nunn, began to experience health problems which this January were finally diagnosed to be terminal neurodegenerative disease, disabling him from his usual spring occupation of troubleshooting the drip irrigation system for leaks and parts replacements. On June 2nd, about the time he would have been launching the automated system for summer, Tom fell down the stairway, breaking 7 ribs in 15 places and collapsing along, all on the right side. His injuries were severe enough that he was medevaced to Memorial General Hospital in Colorado Springs, and I drove him home on June 13th and met with hospice to enroll him. He remains in hospice, and I'm his sole 24/7 caregiver. Due to the necessity of his heightened medical needs, an out-of-town friend has tried to launch the watering system, but many leaks have gone unnoticed for days, and our water usage has been high as a result. We pay our bills, and the water that we've lost through such leaks is not what brought us here tonight. We will pay for the metered water. What we are here to dispute is the sewer charges. There has been no increase in the number of showers or toilet flushes or other sewage disposal. To arbitrarily charge a homeowner sewage using fees for every drop of water that runs through the water meter is unconscionable. There is no question that homeowners who own a hot tub or a greenhouse or wash their car do not put a drop of that water into the sewer system. This point was obvious enough that Trustee Ed Hallam put it forth on October 27th of 2021 when he said, quote, he was in disagreement of raising sewer rates due to water in the summer being put through the sewer system. Thank you, Ed. By itself, raising the sewer rates is not really the root of the problem. Everyone's cost of living has gone up recently and shows no sign of relief. The town's staff recent pay increase was no doubt related to cost of living increases and is reasonable. The cost of running the town has no doubt gone up, but these facts and probabilities still do not justify a service provider charging for a service not rendered. The water that waters my trees is not in the town's sewer system and does not belong on my sewer bill. 2 things that could be done, and thank you, I wrote this before the solution of an increased base was there. One of my solutions that I would propose is to increase the base, but increase the base perhaps based on what the user averaged in the prior winter months, because that would accommodate true higher usage of sewer if it was, pardon?
We have 1 minute left.
Thank you. That would accommodate higher usage of sewer and higher usage homes and use the sewer accordingly. But the sewer fees that have been charged already should be reimbursed. It was wrong that they were charged. And in our case, for 3 months, our water bill is $1,500, not because of the water that we flush down the commode, but because of the unconscionable rate that we were charged for that metered water. Thank you. Oh, one more thing. You guys have a huge amount of work that you do, and in the last 10 years, we've seen really great things happen in Mancos, and I'm sure that you guys don't get all the appreciation, you don't hear all the appreciation that you deserve, but we need to be able to trust that our government takes care of us fairly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, was there anybody else that wanted to speak on the waters? Okay. I will then bring it back to the board for discussion.
I do see in the resolution, item 3, there is a $30,000 gallons I think it'd just be 30,000. We should eliminate the dollar sign.
And isn't there a limit on the sewer, a cap?
Sewer is capped, the overage is capped at 30,000 gallons.
Right.
So the sewer portion of the bills, under this existing rate structure should never exceed $204 or $209 for sewer only. That's not water.
And that's the,
Water is not capped.
right, and
But
that's the 30.
only for commercial
I
churches.
mean, like today, right
Today,
now, or
right.
the last month or two.
Okay.
Sewer is capped at 30,000 gallons.
And that's $209.
Approximately, yes. So that's an approximate number.
Okay. Okay. Cindy, do you have a comment?
I just have a question because I was out of town and missed the workshop. So this proposed slate of rates will actually take care of the sewer plant costs and
It will,
allow for capital?
it will allow for debt obligations under the existing debt, and it will allow us to put aside a small amount for capital, for manholes, for sewer line replacements, for plant upgrades, new regulation, meeting those requirements.
Okay, thank you.
Betsy? Do you have any comments or anything to say? Denise?
Well, I think that we've come to a good resolution of making the sewer rate a flat fee. It's still, what we keep hearing are people who go over and over and over. There's a whole bunch of residents who don't go over, who never even use 6,000 gallons, and we're asking them to pay more. So for me, that seems a little more fair.
But we're not asking because this is a sewer rate adjustment, not a water rate.
Right,
So
and that's,
they separate.
right. So I'm just saying that we're asking that to pay more for the sewer.
The sewer rate has increased.
The sewer rate is,
But
there's
it's
two
not
separate
related to what?
businesses. And the sewer rate
Right.
increased, for the.
Oh, I see what, I see. I
It's
didn't
$50.
state that right. I hear what you're saying, Ed. Yeah.
Because it-
Well, there's still, I think it's fair that all the citizens would pay the $50 then. That seems like a good compromise and not pay any overage, and we're not attaching it to the water.
To the water.
And then it's the commercial that are gonna be paying more.
Because we find that most of the commercials are higher water users. And a lot of theirs have relevance to the sewer usage, i.e. most hotels, the car
Right.
wash, that water goes into the sewer. Hotels tend not to have extravagant landscapes or gardens. Their water usage is pretty, it doesn't fluctuate like those at water gardens and gardens.
Mhm.
That's the whole reason why that kind of looked at it that way. And the thing is, like we all discussed, the biggest fact here is that base rate, that $50 is to cover because we can't close shop.
Right.
We have to pay that. We have to have debt obligation. We have to have the ability to make maintenance. We have to have the ability to set some aside. So that was a number that worked for us to get that solvent. What we were trying to do before was to make that happen, and we approached it in a different direction that obviously wasn't successful.
Well, I just want to thank everyone for coming and speaking, and it's your town, so when you show up and tell us what you want, that's just makes these decisions so much easier to revisit and to talk about. And as far as we're just gonna be talking about sewer rates right now, and maybe some other time we'll revisit this water rate.
Yeah,
If we're the same, if our water rates are the same as other towns around here, or, you know, are we just charging too much for water, or that kind of thing. Maybe that's a discussion for another
That's a
day.
different discussion, because this is just the.
Yeah.
No, you should discuss that all at the same time, because you're doing a resolution that's only 2 sentences.
But it's not.
But hang on.
It is not the same, because, and I will tell you that our water rates are probably some of the lowest in the area. Because and we get 6,000 gallons. And a lot of places get 1,000 gallons, and they're paying over $90 a month for that 1,000 gallons. So please let us look at that at another time. That is not this discussion. So we will revisit that when it comes time. But right now we're talking about our sewer rates, and we don't usually go back and revisit a decision that we have made. But we listen to our community. We also, when we made this decision back in January, inflation was not where it is today. Gas prices were not. Food was not. Rent was not. So we did listen to you guys, because it not only hit you guys, it hit us. Each one of us up here had higher bills too, and it hit the town of Mancos. Because Mancos is watering Boyle Park. You don't think that was cheap? That was.
So the raise in the sewer price
Right.
should alleviate the financial situation.
So this will alleviate our debt service that we have to pay, and let us put a little bit back for capital for manholes and sewer lines, not for water lines, sewer lines. This is sewer
Why not
only.
make the commercial base rate too? What's the problem? Why do they have to pay more?
Because, all right, listen, because they use more water, and that water does go into our sewer.
So what? We raise the rate that covers the sewers.
It does not cover the sewer. The $65 for the businesses does not cover our debt. That's why we did it this way, okay? Because we looked into this very, very carefully.
So they'd be paying a little.
They would be paying more for the water usage that they use, because their water does go into the sewer. Those of you that are watering your grass does not go into the sewer. Now, if they don't go over their 6,000 gallons, they're not going to have a higher sewer bill. They're going to have the $65. Okay, wait a minute.
He makes the coffee for
Well,
the town. So you really will have trouble with it.
it is what it is, and so I'm going to bring this back to the board for our discussions, okay?
Okay.
All right. So I think we've answered.
Heather's good.
Heather?
I was just gonna say, we last did a water and sewer rate study using a professional consultant in 2016. We are having budget discussions for 2023. I will pull that information out, pull the consultant out, figure out how much we paid. I know it's on our website somewhere. But I will do a little bit of research as far as possibly conducting another study in 2023. Depending on cost and grants and that kind of thing. So I will add this to my list of things to research and consider, and I'll bring it to you guys during budget discussions at our future meetings, if that works.
That will work.
Yeah, thank you.
That will work.
Thank you.
Okay, does anybody, Betsy, you don't have any comments? Okay, all right. I would then entertain a motion.
I will make a motion to approve Resolution 15, Series 2022, a resolution pursuant to Section 13-1-40 of the Mancos Municipal Code with regard to an increase in the water and sewer rates for the town of Mancos.
I'll second.
Okay, I have a motion by trustee Ed Hallam and a second by trustee Denise Bryant to approve Resolution 15, Series 2022, a resolution pursuant to Section 13-1-40 of the Mancos Municipal Code with regard to an increase in water and sewer rates for the town of Mancos. Jamie, would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Aye.
Trustee Denise Bryan.
Aye.
Trustee Ed Hall.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. This will go into effect August 1st.
It will go into
No.
effect August 1st.
Yeah.
It will be reflected on bills that are mailed out on September 1st. And we will also put a notice on those utility bills, that go out September 1st, unfortunately, with the time notice. But we will put a notice on the bills referencing the resolution and giving people our website so that they can look at it.
Sorry, when will that be included on the e-bills as well? Not just included?
It should be, and I will try to make sure.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving right along, the higher purpose homes land request. Heather?
So we had a presentation. Ethan is here tonight if you guys have questions during the discussion. I'm here to recap them and I need direction from you all. So presentation in the last meeting from higher purpose homes asking us to sell them some property, what we know as the airport property, up on Road 42. So there was some discussion about, can we sell public land? Should we sell public land? What is the process? What is the procedure? So David did some research and we did have a little bit of discussion. So in your staff report, I put the actual statute that relates to the sale of public property. And I will also say in that staff report, and I did let Tom know ahead of time so they are not surprised, I do not recommend that we ever sell. If you want to consider a lease or a long-term lease of something, that's a recommendation, but I'm not recommending to you all that we sell land. That's just my recommendation. You guys have the final say. So I'm just looking for some direction at this point. You can ask me to bring you back. Can we sell land? Do we? How can we? I've given you that, and then give me my recommendation.
We can't make more land.
No.
So,
Well, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Of Heather, really.
Go ahead.
And that is, what do you base your recommendation on? Because I don't have a good sense, a good knowledge of the pros and cons of, selling town property versus maintaining ownership of town property.
And it basically goes back to, number one, we're not making any more land. Development is happening at a rapid pace here. And there are and have been some discussions as to what we should do up there. Most recently this year, on the south side of that property, we are installing some fiber infrastructure so that the town can be served with wireless high-speed internet. And on the northwest side of that property, there was discussion under the Parks and Trails Master Plan. Community feedback was I just lost the word, what is it, Terry? Sports complex for baseball, for volleyball. So we have, the other reason, at least at this specific location, is there's a gravel pit right in the middle of that property. So until that operation is complete at this specific location, selling pieces of that land, I just don't recommend it. Nothing says that you all can't do it. What I will say is, unofficially, I have been, as we're talking about workforce housing, I have been talking to economic development in Richmond. I get on realtor.com, talk to local realtors. Is there anything that the town can purchase? Because under another project, we're talking about a land banking and land acquisition program for workforce housing for people who live and work in Mancos. We cannot afford to buy land right now. Citizens in town can't afford to live here. So I do recommend against selling an asset that is completely paid for. And it's just my opinion.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is that if we do sell land, we have to put it to a vote of the people. Is that not true? That's what I read in the statute.
That's just put to a public, and how it put to the governmental purpose. So,
A non-governmental purpose, and this would be a non-governmental purpose.
I don't know the history of how that property was acquired.
If it's been used for a governmental purpose, not a we don't use it for non-governmental purposes. If we've used it for a governmental purpose, we must go to the people and go to a vote voting election.
Because that was the hard part that I couldn't understand, because at one point it was the airport that the town owned. Is that a governmental purpose?
Yes.
So it was used for a governmental purpose?
Um,
Well, it was an airport that it was the town's airport at one time.
And the gravel
I
pit
mean, we're talking a long
portion.
time ago, but that's why we
Yeah.
call it the airport property, because it was the airport that the town owned.
So, arguably making the
Yeah,
election.
that, and I have to agree, with the point that at this point in time, as the town, smiles to grow, I would hate to see us get rid of a piece of property at this point in time that might be beneficial to the citizens of this town as the town grows, because we don't own other properties around to have set aside for non-developed place, in that capacity. So, I mean, it's tough. Yeah, I really appreciate their intent and what they want to do, but I just don't know if that's the best. I mean, it would be cool for them, but I don't know if it's the best thing for us to go that route.
Well, and you could consider a lease, 20 years. That, in my opinion, flies by. I've been with the town for 14.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you could consider a lease with an option to extend or something.
But if you
That
give
is
them
something that we could research.
lease, they build houses, they build that there, at the end of their lease, what do you say? Sorry, you're out, we tear them all down? It isn't
Well,
to
they're
their
not-
advantage.
No, they're producing houses there to be sold elsewhere.
Manufacturing.
Yeah, but people aren't gonna be living there.
And it is, yeah, it's kind of tough. It could be pulled out, brought back, but yeah, that's a tough one.
So I'm just gonna jump in here real fast. I have a question. How many usable acres do we have up there? 'Cause we have a lot of acreage, but a lot of it's hillside you can't build on. When you talk about acreage, and you talk about, we've got 50 acres right now with the gravel pit. And then we've got the baseball field. We want to put the fiber up there, but, there is a lot of acreage up there that nobody can use because it's hillside. It's, it's not productive to us. So if we know how many acres we actually have, then we could possibly talk about, okay, maybe we could lease them, 10 or 20 acres. But again, if we don't know how many acres we have available.
So we have 20 usable acres up there? On the north side, there's 20 usable acres, so they could,
But does that do away with the baseball field?
No.
Yes.
It does, it's part of that usable acreage.
Yes, I want to do that. And on the south side, there are some gullies and. Thank you, Karen.
You have a question?
Okay, don't usually do this, but I am going to take your question, James. But usually we don't take questions from the audience unless you want to come speak on the subject that is on the agenda.
I was just wondering if, Montezuma County still had the gravel pit there, and if they'd be planning to do it back.
So.
When I was on the board, that was part of it.
So they have not given us back any of the land yet. We're still fighting with them over that. They're in the process of it. It's looking like it is going to come some up back to us, but it's only like about 10 acres, which is still right on the edge of that gravel pit. So that's not going to help us a whole lot with what these people want. So, right. And we do still have the 50 acres of gravel pit that's right in the middle because it's usable land, and a lot of the other acreage is over the hillside. So that does create an issue for us.
And what we're getting back from the county is actually on the south side of the property, not the west.
Right. And some of the acres that we're getting back are non-usable acres because they are hillside. They can't use it either. So we said, you guys can't use it, so give it back to us. So we're getting some of that back, but again, we're not getting a lot of the usable land back. So, Janice.
So, Todd, is it?
Ethan.
Ethan. I got Todd.
That's my partner that was here earlier.
Oh, okay. So Ethan, I know you guys were really on the idea of purchasing. And is there anything else in Mancos that looked purchasable? Was there anything else that you thought you could purchase in the area?
There is one area west of town that's owned by a private owner. We're in topsoil.
Oh, okay.
We would like to be in Mancos. It is difficult because there's not a lot of options for sale. Frank has some land that he's not willing to break it up into smaller portions. And so, yeah, there's one option that we're looking at right now. And other than that, we're looking at Cortez. We would prefer to be in Mancos, but we have 2 or 3 viable lots in Cortez.
Okay, so I know you can't answer this, but is it a deal breaker then if you have to lease land? Are you just
It's not a deal breaker, but to Ed's point earlier, if we build if we do a 15-year lease or 20-year lease, if we build the infrastructure, it would be difficult if you guys wanted to end a lease. What do we do? What's on the land? Then we have to break that all down, move to a different location. So it's not as attractive to us. What would be more attractive is to find something that we could purchase in another location, unfortunately, and build and own.
That makes sense.
That's it.
Yeah, I had a different thought, and I don't mean to say anything against higher purpose homes, but you're not operational yet. You're a brand new business. And so I had a feeling like I would prefer not to sell and prefer to lease, especially since you're just a startup company. Because if we sold it and then you were not successful, then what happens? So it's kind of another angle on the same thing. Leasing a decent term lease to give you a chance to get up and running and see how it goes, and then we can both negotiate further down the road. But that was my thought.
I have another question too, Terry. Do we have water rights on that property? Do you know that? I mean, so if we was to lease this, where are they going to get their water?
They would have to purchase it from Mancos Rural Water.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I did ask Todd that, because that's a concern, I know, lack of water. And he indicated that 3/4 staff from Mancos Rural would be sufficient, because you don't use water in the manufacturing process, it's just basically bathrooms and kitchens for staff. Not a necessity.
Okay.
And if that was the case, they could put it in septic and get a tap from Mancos Rural like a standard tap.
Yeah.
That's good.
I still needed to ask the question because water is such a subject right now.
I noticed.
And and water always has been. It always has been a touchy subject. People have been killed over it for many, many years, and it's touchy in today's world too. So we have to take care of what water we have, and thank goodness we're getting some rain. So, do you have anything else? Cindy?
Yeah, so I just have a few thoughts, and they're sort of random and disjointed, so sorry. I've worked for government since 1996, a lot of it in planning and zoning. When a government considers selling property, we aren't making more property. Governments typically are on limited budgets and can't buy land very easily. And so we have to be very, very careful about this very precious resource that we have. And that piece of property is so precious. I don't know if y'all have been up there and looked at the view from there, but you can see everything, and it is so beautiful. And I just want to make sure that we do something worthy of that piece of property. And I also think governments need to ask, what benefit is it to the town? We know it might help a business get started, but what's the benefit and what's the impact? And so One, that property, even though we own it, it's not in town. And so we don't gain any sales tax. We don't gain anything from that business operating there. And what I would see is additional traffic impacts on the folks that live up there. And granted, they're not our folks, they're the county folks, but you know, it's Mancos Valley. And there's going to be additional traffic and dust, and it's going to require mitigation. You know, the road is pretty curvy coming down into town. And so I think that the danger would increase a lot as well. And so I tend to lean also toward what Heather had said was I would not want to sell this property, a piece of it. I would have really severe reservations on that.
Any further comments? Heather, do you need?
Sorry, I was just confirming with David that I'm wondering how much of this conversation is, I don't want to say necessary, but if it was used as for a public purpose by the town, we would have to go to an election. Even if you all said we want to sell it right now and charge premium dollars, we still have to go to an election. Our next regular municipal election is April of 2024, unless the board wanted to authorize a special election. Elections generally, if we're running our own election, just not coordinating or collaborating with the county, or an election would run the town about $10,000 if we wanted to do a special election. I don't know that the timeline allows for us to wait for an election, because even if we have a special election, we're looking at 6 months out. So.
And I would love to have this kind of business in town. It's just that property,
For what it's worth, Cindy and Heather, you know, we went up and visited the land last time we were in town here. And it is gorgeous, and I don't know that putting a factory up there is the best decision ever. You know, I appreciate you all considering it. I think there's personally, I think there's a large benefit for the town of Mancos or for any town, to have this business located near it, just for the amount of jobs that it will create and the revenue that it's going to create. But I agree, I don't, that land is beautiful to be used for public use, and something that everybody's excited about going to see, not a 45,000 square foot steel building.
Thank you for understanding our concern.
For sure.
If you townspeople have not been up there to see that property, I drive up and turn around and look at the views that property presents to us all. And again, we can't make more land, and that property is ours, and it is free and clear. So I think at this point, it seems like the census is.
I think you got some feedback.
No.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for your understanding.
Of course, I appreciate you guys taking the time to consider it. And if a lease is still on the table, I'll go back to my partners and talk to them and see if it's something that would move forward. If it is, then we'll reach out to them. Thank you.
Okay.
Appreciate you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Hope you find something here.
Negotiate with that other fellow.
Okay, moving right along is the Mancos Senior Center discussion. And is there anybody here that wants to speak on that did not sign up? Okay, Heather, would you introduce this?
So, just to kind of recap, in July, maybe the end of June, beginning of July, I received an email from Montezuma County employee that said, Montezuma County didn't receive all the funding that we need, so we're going to be closing the senior center and making some doors in those 2 weeks. So we met with them and got some information. And what happened is they applied for $174,000 in funding. What I was told is they were told that they received that entire $174,000 in funding. However, when contract documents came from the granting agency, the grant amount was only for $99,000. And their fiscal year runs July 1 to June 30th. So on, I think it was June 29th or 30th is when they received those grant docs and realized this was happening. So we did meet with them. Jason and I went and met with the county staff person and the commissioners and things to figure out, we can't have our senior center closed. And you certainly can't, you can't have 2 weeks notice. So we have talked to them, I've received some information, I think I provided some at the last meeting with regard to how many meals they serve, what their operating budget is, that kind of thing. And so what we had talked about was if the county will commit and guarantee that they will keep the senior center burden through their next fiscal year, which is June 30th, 2023, the town will contribute $20,000 as kind of an emergency contribution to keep the senior center open in order to allow the county and the municipalities to figure out next steps. How is it going to be self-sustaining moving forward? What can we do? So the commissioners did agree to that. I went to their workshop last week. They did agree to that at their meeting on Tuesday. So I am asking the board to officially allocate $20,000 from our general fund. The county has, because that was our concern, if we give them 20, are they going to use it here in Mancos? So we got all of that worked out. I am now asking the board to officially allocate that $20,000, and I have our initial meeting set up with the county administrator, the city Cortez manager, the Dolores manager, and myself next week. So
I will say that there is a committee for the senior center that is working very hard to raise some money. They had a booth at Mancos Days. They ran a 50-50 raffle. The person who won the raffle gave the 50-50 back to them. That was my son. So I do know that. He felt very passionate about it going back to our seniors. So I was very proud of him. But again, I think they're also stepping up a little bit because they don't want it closed and they're trying to figure out ways to raise money to help it, and maybe our 20,000 will get them by this year, and hopefully what they raise can go start a seed for next year. So I know that I think it's a worthwhile cause because they do serve a lot of our people in Mancos, a lot of our seniors, and they do invite anybody that wants to come have a meal with them. I think it's $13. If I'm not a senior, I can go and have lunch with them for $13. Well, you know, and they're pretty good meals. So.
Well, and I will say I still have some questions. Up until now, it's county service. The town's not involved in their operating.
Yeah.
You know, we know where they are, and in fact, but we're not involved in day-to-day operating. So I do still have some questions, and I have sent those initial questions to the group that's meeting this week and said, you know, here are some of my questions and maybe some suggestions. And I did make it clear in that email, the town cannot afford to subsidize this program on an ongoing basis. This is an emergency contribution to keep the senior center open. So I will say I do still have questions, but I'm hoping that now that we bought some time in a year now, and I do think we collaborate very well as a county and a group, so I'm hoping that we can figure it out and move forward. That is one of the questions. Are the donations received in Mancos allocated to the Mancos Senior Center? Are they just put in a donation? So those, I do have some questions.
Well, and I think because of our the nonprofit requesting grant money from us over the years, you have a pretty good handle on what the board's questions have been about the senior center. So I think you know, I'm pretty comfortable with your questions.
And keep you updated. I mean, I will keep you updated on this process as we meet and as we come up with solutions or suggestions or questions. I will absolutely. You will receive this over the next year.
Yeah. I do have a question. Would this come out of our reserves, or would we be canceling a project, or? Okay.
I have a question, when is it due? Is it a single payment or?
It is a single payment, and I would probably have to check this week or next week.
Okay, so it's not something that we could allocate half now and half in our next fiscal budget, or pay it all in the next fiscal budget and put it in our budget? Those were the questions that I had written down on my notes.
I could look into if we give them 10 now through December and then 10 in January of next year, I can let.
Yeah, I just didn't know how they wished to receive it.
Well, and it was basically just a kind of discussion back and forth, or we could give them money or we not. If we do, here's what I feel we can afford to give out of our reserves. We can't afford the entire $44,000 operating budget.
Yeah.
Here's what we can afford up. So I was basically just honestly going to kind of check so the financial piece of our obligation is met. And then moving forward, problem solving, we'll figure out how to keep them sustainable after that. But I can split it if you'd like to.
No, I just didn't know.
I think it's worth looking into, the budget.
I do need a motion in a second to roll call vote on this, so whatever that motion is what I will.
Will the county refund the money?
I actually have a guarantee at a public meeting from the commissioners that they will keep it open through July 30th, 2023 at the earliest to give the municipal county managers enough time to figure out what they're doing. So they're not going to close it. They gave me a guarantee of the on YouTube.
I would then write the money that we held because they just changed their mind or something. How people are shot.
So I have a feeling I'm going to need you involved in that because they're county attorneys, not just me.
Yeah, I hate to be pretty short.
Janice, do you have some comments?
No, I think it's, I think we're doing a good service to our community and our seniors to be able to, to fund this. I don't remember if Heather told us, but how did we end up, just like 2 weeks we're closing this thing, how did they run out of money? Do we know?
They didn't get their grant.
Oh, that's what it was.
The
I
grant?
did find out their grant was insufficient, and I'm sorry, I can't answer that. I still have some questions.
Yeah. Okay. Because it seems like it's been operating and running, and then all of a sudden they're saying, "Oh, we're closing in 2 weeks." Like, how did that happen? So, but
I will be asking some questions.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I think those. I'm giving you questions to ask.
I think their staff and some of their clients also have those questions because they didn't have any get-go of this until all of a sudden they were told, you're better start looking for another job. And it was a surprise to anybody and everybody that utilizes that facility, and it came down from higher quarters. So,
well, like I said, we're doing what we need to at this point, but I do still have questions. I do have some documentation things that I want to ask for moving forward.
Yeah.
So I don't want to just guess or assume or even give you information that I heard from someone else. I would rather kind of do my own fact finding and then bring you actual data.
that's it.
I'm not opposed to the, emergency $20,000, but I think it gives us a good opportunity to, like you say, you're gonna have some meetings, but if we think a senior center is important, then I think we should somehow figure out how, not necessarily the town, but maybe there's some kind of community support, so it's not just the county telling us, oh, we're short of money. Because I've had some involvement with the senior center in prior years, and I think it could be a lot better for our seniors. It could be a much nicer environment, and I know it does primarily meals, but there's also some social aspects to it. So I think this, the expense gives us an opportunity to have some dialogue and see how we might improve it going forward.
Well, and so this is one of my questions that I will be asking next week is there desire to explore moving the senior center from its current location, which has served them well, and the Masonic Lodge has been great. So, but is there a desire on the county's part, and then I was going to come back to you, but I'll tell you guys first, to move the senior center? They operate from 10 to 2, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The community center, if it's not in use, is that something we want to do? Because they're downtown, it's easier to get to. It puts that population that may potentially not have a lot of social interaction in the middle of downtown.
Right.
So that was something I was going to ask the county last year, and maybe that is our contribution, is here is a place where the community center has a commercial kitchen that never gets used. So maybe that's an option. If there is interest, at least a willingness to consider that on your part tonight, then I will say next week, my board is interested, is there will on the county's part, and then go. So if that is something that you would like me to actually float to them with the understanding that we have already talked about it in Vegas and they're willing to explore this possibility.
Well, I think that was a really good point. And then as I said before, there's more people in this community 60 and over than 18 and under. I mean, we have a very, look at the board.
Well, the senior center is 55 plus, right?
55 plus, so we're all included.
I'm going there for lunch.
It's true. I think it's a great idea, Heather, and to have that, use that community center, because there's more things than just meals too. You know, we can,
exactly, and it's much more pleasant atmosphere. You know, see daylight.
The only issue is parking.
So I will check off the piece where to check forward, and move to ask the county if there's any type of desire on their part to explore that option. So, but it was on my list of questions. I just reversed the order. So, but I will. Thank you, Betsy. I will bring that up. Okay.
That's worded.
Okay, any further questions or anything? Then I would entertain a motion.
I move we authorize the town of Mancos to pay Montezuma County a one-time amount of $20,000 on an emergency basis from our general fund reserves to keep the Mancos Senior Center operating through June 30th, 2023, as soon as we receive the stated agreement with the Board of County Commissioners in writing.
I'll second that motion.
Okay. We have a motion by trustee Cindy Simpson and a second, we have a motion by Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson and a second by trustee Ed Hallam to authorize the town of Mancos to pay Montezuma County a one-time amount payment of $20,000 to keep the Mancos Senior Center operating through June 30th, 2023, as soon as we receive the written
The stated agreement with the Board of County Commissioners
from the
in writing.
Board of County Commissioners in writing. Jamie, would you call the roll, please?
Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison. Aye. Trustee Jason Ryan.
Aye.
Trustee Ed Allen.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. All right. Moving right along, we have the water treatment plant change order.
And I need Terry to help me with this. Because I was writing this last week, they lost power here, so I got some of my stuff. So there is some equipment, additional equipment in the water plant that needs to be replaced.
Can you make that very, very clear just for you guys in the audience? This is the water treatment plant, not the sewer treatment plant. So you have two different plants. So this is the water treatment plant.
Okay, let me back up. We are currently in the process of upgrading the water treatment plant. We upgraded the building, we upgraded disinfection, we upgraded SCADA controls, the brains of the plant. We are demolishing and replacing the old water tank that is up there. And so as part of that project, as we have dug into the remodel, one of the things that Terry talked to the engineers about were influence controls need to be updated. Browns Hill is our sole source for those controls for both water and wastewater. So that's why you are receiving one quote. This is only Brownsville. And so our engineer has kind of done some research and done some work. So this 30,000 is outside the scope of the existing project. However, we have funding to cover this $30,000. I gave you a little bit of a breakdown that said, the budget is $2.6 million for this project, and we have $2.9 million in funding. Because, first of all,
Contingency.
Yeah.
no contingency, because it wasn't in the original scope.
Mhm.
If it was in the original scope and it ended up costing more or something
Yeah.
unforeseen happened with one of those items, I would say take it out of contingency.
No, I'm just saying that's what our extra money's for.
Yes, we were incredibly lucky to get the funding that we received. And I've kind of broken that down for you with the staff report. So while it's outside the scope of the existing contract with TKM, which is our contractor on this project, it is still covered under the funding that we have been awarded. So it's not coming out of reserves in order to do this project.
Thanks.
So, Terry, I don't know if you have anything to add or if you have any questions that Jerry or I can answer for you.
What is a PLG?
PLG?
PLC.
PLC.
Programmable logic.
It's brains, isn't it?
It's the brains.
Okay, all right. I just needed to know the acronyms. Thank you.
Yeah, don't you love acronyms? Like, what the heck is that?
Betsy.
Sounds essential to me.
Sounds essential. You want to keep drinking?
Yeah.
No, I've got no problem.
Yeah, let's be
No problem.
specific.
Yes.
Yes, I would like to keep.
Janice.
No, I agree. It's essential and it's pretty straightforward to fix these things so we don't get into a situation that we've already been in another place. So let's just get this right this time. So I think this, and it's very well laid out, so thank you.
Well, and I will say Brownsville is providing, like the equipment and the controls. Our guys are still doing some of the work in-house. Just in order to preserve as much of our funding as possible. Because anytime you're doing a remodel or working on pipes in the ground that have been there since the 1960s, you're always running into something unexpected.
Yeah.
So our guys are doing work in-house in order to save some, to reserve as much of the available funding for contingencies.
Cindy.
I think it's great. I kind of echo what Jenny said. With the time is now, do it right. And we've got the funding, which, never happens. So, yay.
I would entertain a motion.
I move we approve the quote from Browns Hill for influent and chemical controls in the amount not to exceed $30,000 for the water treatment plant.
And I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Betsy Harrison and a second by trustee Janice Bryant to approve the quote from Browns Hills for influent and chemical controls in an amount not to exceed $30,000 for the water treatment plant. Jamie, would you call the vote?
Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Aye.
Trustee Janice Bryant.
Aye.
Trustee Ed Helm.
Aye.
Okay, motion carries. Okay, moving right along is the MMO building demolition and abatement.
All right, so back to this building. So I'm asking, I've been in contact with Waymanuch, who did the RFP for construction before we found out about the asbestos in the building. I'm asking the board to approve the demolition and abatement of the asbestos in the building with a permanent fence around the site. And instead of doing a temporary, it's just, we're gonna tear it down. It's gonna be a little while before we can build the new building. Let's put the permanent fence up and then protects the citizens while the site's still being developed. So if you guys have any questions, I'll take those, but it's kind of just a a very straightforward request on it.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So the fence, will it go all the way across the front to the fire department building? Or
No.
No.
Would-
So we'll still have the pocket park or the,
Yes, just like the construction
okay.
that we were looking at. We're gonna keep the pocket park, because we don't need a bunch of citizen pushback for the pocket park. And, I can't say anything about the landscaping, other than the pocket park landscaping should be left untouched. But the actual site landscaping will be gone, most likely.
Will the fence come all the way onto the sidewalk?
That's the only part of the fence that will move when the construction's completed. So it'll be out there during the site construction, and then once the building's built, it'll move back away from the sidewalk.
So the FedEx thing that's there, you talked to them about moving their container, so that.
Not yet.
Okay.
And I'm kind of waiting. I don't want to get the cart ahead of the horse too much.
Okay, okay.
So the only comment I have is that it hurts my heart to lose a brick building and then stick a metal building. I think that government should lead the way and really make a building that we can all be proud of. And it doesn't need to be exorbitant, but I think that when we actually go to building it and doing something to the outside, I would sure like to see something that looks nice that we can all be proud of. We've got this gorgeous bridge we just built, you know. Sorry, I'm slouching. It's been a really long day. And I just think that we should lead the way with beautification of our downtown instead of, you know, encouraging everybody else to beautify their buildings and then we stick a pole barn. You know, I'm sure it wouldn't look quite like that, but let's make it look nice. And maybe we can combine it with a senior center and a daycare. Oh no, maybe.
Well, yeah, just what you remember, it's law enforcement. We're not supposed to be daycare.
True.
That's why we have the CRP program.
True.
When you say a permanent fence, what are we talking? Are we talking chain link, or are we talking?
Yeah, it'll be chain link.
Chain link.
Yeah. And the reason is right now I have 3 vehicles in Terry's area. So the idea is when we seize a vehicle for a search warrant, we put it at our building, and then we quit cluttering up Terry's area so much.
The only thing is because we're not going to be able to build a building right away, we're going to have a fenced-in no man's land. That's the only thing that kind of, you know.
So the price for the demolition and stuff, I didn't add in to grade. So they're gonna take it out because instead of paying for it to be graded and then dug up again, I just didn't, it didn't make sense to me. And we're putting a fence around it anyways for security purposes. So build the fence and then hopefully earlier than later next year, we get to start building the building.
There's a grant program that we're looking into for construction, which is the timeline. Because currently, building costs are estimated at $300 a square foot, and that building is 1,500, 15 or 1,800 square feet.
We're gonna do 1,500 price point, hopefully.
So that is why we are looking for a grant.
Yeah.
I am happy to try, depending on budget projections. Because what we can't do is we can't use our federal CARES money for this. We can use that for mental health, so we can use that for the CIP. We can use it for infrastructure, so we can use it for the broadband project. There is almost no funding out there for law enforcement.
Yeah.
So there is one program for your energy impact that requires a 50% match. at $300 a square foot to build, plus the technology required for law enforcement. They have different technological needs with body cam storage and evidence and armories and so.
Additional security.
And interview rooms, so the price adds up quickly. Now, I'm happy to try, I'm not hopeful, but I'm happy to try after we get the bill for demolition, and we don't have any surprises and there's no change orders that we're ready to. I'm happy to look at our reserves and see if we can pay cash and build a building. I don't know if that's possible. I also don't know what that will do to our reserves. But I'm happy to look at it, talk to our auditor, figure out some numbers, get some firm numbers that adjusted and that kind of thing. So.
And hopefully the price of building will go down.
It'll stabilize.
Yeah.
Hopefully. But the other thing, to be super honest, that we run into is the same thing that we run into if I approach a property owner about selling their property. We think the town or government, we have deep pockets. And I don't think our local contractors soak us, don't get me wrong. But I also don't know that we're going to pay much less below $300 a square foot for at least the next 12 or 18 months.
Yeah.
So, I'm happy to do that research and see if we can do it without a grant and bring it to you guys. And I'll be honest about our finances. I'm happy to do that and at least consider it because I know that it's not going to be super attractive.
I don't want a second hole.
I'm sorry?
I don't want a second hole.
Yeah, we already have a big hole.
I know it's not going to be super attractive.
That's
but we were trying to find some grant funding. But like I said, happy to. I'm sure they want to be in there sooner rather than
later. Yeah, I want to be in there yesterday.
I have a question. Let's say that we really say we don't want a metal building there. Then what's the cost of the remediation of the existing building?
Just to remediate, not to demolish, just to remediate.
Yes, just
build what's and use what's there.
And use what's there. In other words, have we looked at what that cost would be versus $300
with an
a square foot?
Addition?
The problem with that is the abatement. We don't know how much of the brick wall is going to be left because it's the CMU. So the outside of the building is a brick facade. The inside is cinder block. And the cinder block filler is what has the asbestos in all four walls.
So when they take out the cinder block, the bricks fall over.
Yes.
And if you look at the local WCA, we moved to WCA, they did do, we actually had a special, so the way it works is we had a certified specialist in asbestos come in and do a report for us. Under state law, that same person can't abate it, so we have to go to a contractor. So if you look at this information from WCA, in a 1,500 square foot building, 1,500 square feet of drywall ceiling, approximately 1,300 square feet of CMU filler, and approximately 1,300 square feet of floor tile and associated mastic has asbestos.
It's pretty full.
To Justin's point, I don't know how much of the building will be left.
Could they maybe save some of the bricks on the outside? No, the outside bricks, the facade
It'd be
bricks.
cheaper to just put up new brick.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just asking, just asking.
If it was a historic brick, it might have been a different story.
Yeah.
That's just run-of-the-mill brick.
And what I can say is we can work, if it's the aesthetic, the outside aesthetic that you would like to see, we can bring you drawings.
Well, the idea on the metal building is the red iron is going to span and have less maintenance, less overall cost to the town for the life of the building. The outside, the facade doesn't have to be metal. It's just, I mean, we can make
So you can just have metal, but then we can put something that's.
Well, I mean, and that's a whole nother topic for the board once we get an engineered site plan.
Yeah.
I just wanted to put in that's what I'm looking at right now because it appears to be the cheapest for a red iron steel versus a brick and mortar construction.
Well, no matter what, we have to abate this building. I mean, we have to get the asbestos out. So.
Yeah, we can't do anything with it right now.
Right, right. So this is like
And
step one,
Mhm.
get this stuff all out and take it down to as far as they have to take it down. To.
Oh, it's coming all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we can, when we bring the design plans, we can have a bunch of different designs the board gets to choose from. But we've got to do something right now because the town can't even give the lot away.
Right.
So.
Well,
yeah, because of the asbestos.
No, this is step one. Yeah, I think
that got you there.
Yeah. So we're at step one. Yeah, let's do it. Let's take the building down, get all that out of there, and then we'll see what happens after that.
And I'm not saying the replacement building has to be brick. I just think it needs to look nice.
It needs to be aesthetically.
Yeah.
Well, and again, I didn't want to bring the board too far down in the weeds on this project right now.
Yeah.
And I want to, we're looking at future, but we've got to deal with what's presently in front of us.
Mm-hmm.
And once we get the abatement and everything else started, then I can start working on different designs, and Heather and I can look at finances and go from there, because I do want this might be the last town project I do in my career, because hopefully that building lasts longer than I'm here. So, but it's something that the town needs to be proud of.
Yeah.
That's the beginning of the historic district.
Mhm.
So it's can't be just another fire decision.
Right.
Oh, we do still have a ton of barn.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I do want to incorporate the millwood door in our entry. Okay. Maybe not the exterior entry because it's just wood door, but the interior lobby. I'd like to still incorporate that somehow.
I have one other question.
Yes, ma'am.
You said it's going to be a chain link fence.
Yes.
Which means visibility, who's going to see everything.
Yes.
But
well, the idea too is the more citizen pushback I get to you guys, the faster I get to build that building.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
I see. He's playing chess.
Yeah. Into his madness. At least you're honest about it.
Yeah, I'll always be honest.
We're used to it now,
Yeah.
right?
Okay. So anybody else have any comments? If not, I would entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion that we approve WCA for asbesto abatement and demolition of building at a cost not to exceed $150,000.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion by trustee Denise Bryant and a second by trustee Betsy Harrison to approve WCA for asbestos abatement and demolition of the building at a cost not to exceed $150,000. Cindy?
I have one more question, if we can hold that for a minute. Heather, did you say that the people who bid on it can't do the...
No. We had to hire a separate asbestos testing company.
Okay.
Because even though WCA has the ability to test for asbestos, then they wouldn't have been able to do the demolition.
Okay, all right. I got it right in my head now.
Asbestos testing company so that WCA can do.
Okay.
They're the ones who bid on it.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. So now, Jamie, would you call the roll?
Mayor Pro Tem Cindy Simpson.
Aye.
Trustee Betsy Harrison.
Aye.
Trustee Denise Bryant.
Aye.
Trustee Ed Helm.
Okay, motion carries. All right, Justin.
Yeah.
Well, we'll work together on a contract for WCA. Then we approve the bid and we'll get the contract signed.
Okay. Next is the 2023 proposed salary discussion.
Okay, so staff has been meeting internally regarding the operating and maintenance budget. And one of the items that we need to work on is the proposed salary increases for next year. Historically, we've done 3 to 5%, with a combination of cost of living and merit increases. So I've done some research, gave you some information. DOLA is projecting 7% inflation. I do not think, sorry to the staff, I do not think that we can support a 7% COLA increase. Generally, we've done cost of living increases based on inflation. We do water and sewer rates based on inflation. We do tap fees based on inflation. I don't think that we can absorb a 7% cost of living increase for staff next year. So I have given you a ton of information. I also did a salary study using CML's information is in there. So I am looking for some feedback. What we will do is whatever feedback I get from the board, I will build into the budget for next year, and then we have a budget workshop in 2 weeks. So you will be seeing the first draft of the operating and maintenance budget with everything front loaded. So we are going to need to be prepared, I believe, to make some cuts. So what I'm looking for is some feedback from the board as to, do you wish to offer increases next year? Do we want to have just a cost of living increase? Do we want to do merit increases? Do we want to do a cost of living raise and a merit component so it doesn't hit our budget so hard? I just need some feedback from you all, and then what percentage would you like me to consider? I've already started some scenarios. I've got from 1 to 5% kind of on my desk, depending on what you all choose. I can estimate whatever you ask me to estimate. And if you want me to start with 7% and back it out, I'm happy to do that. But I truly don't think that the town can afford a 7% cost of living for our staff. I'm sorry to say that, and I'm sorry for the staff, but I just don't think we can do it. We are spending a lot of money, I think our capital, when we get to the capital discussion, that's stuff that we have to consider. So like I said, happy to put in whatever percentage you want to start with, and then we can back it off or start low and then add whatever you think. But I do think that, I just don't think we're going to be able to afford 7%.
Good question. Do you feel that we can keep our staff without a 7%? Because, you know, if they can go somewhere else and make more money, are we going to lose our dedicated, terrific staff now? I mean, that's something we have to consider too, is, you know, if we lose staff and we have to start training the staff, then it's going to cost us more. So, I mean, that's a huge question for me.
Well,
even at this.
Are you asking me or are you asking the board? Sorry.
No, I'm kind of asking you. I mean, you talk to the staff all the time. We don't talk to them that much, you know. That's not something that I'm going to go ask them. But, I mean, I'm concerned that we would lose the terrific staff that we have, because right now, I tell you what, knock on wood, we've got a great staff, and I don't want to have to try to replace Terry or Justin, because that's going to cost us more. So that's why I'm just throwing it out there.
I absolutely agree with you, and it's something that I struggle with, is that balance, because we have a phenomenal staff, and on the other side of that coin, we have never had to lay people off. We have never had to cut positions due to a recession or due to some financial hardships. And like I said, it's a balancing act. If you look at the salary survey, we are already underpaid, with the exception of one or two department positions. But our department heads and our deputies, they're already underpaid when you compare with local small towns, with our competition.
Right.
So, like I said, it's something that I struggle with. I really struggled with this stuff.
I'm sure you did.
But at the same time, if we have a recession, historically, maybe this is 2 to 3 years behind the nation. So, and the reason or the way that we have managed to come through those is we have been very fiscally conservative. The problem we have now is we just built the bridge. The timing is famous.
Yeah.
We just built the bridge. We have a new marshal's office building that we need to do. We have streets that need to be paved. And because, and I'm just focusing on the general fund right now, because the majority of our salaries and benefits and stuff come out of the general fund. We do have 2 employees that come out of our sewer fund. So we have some big projects. We're replacing equipment in our streets department. We're replacing police vehicles. This staff is doing things that haven't been done for the last, 10 years or so. So we are, that is the other kind of upside to this, because while salary is important to all of us, myself included, I also feel that having equipment that works, having training available for professional development, I think that those are also important, because all of that affects morale. So the last thing I want to do is lose an employee or lose a department head. But at the same time, I would be irresponsible to say, well, let's give the staff the money to keep them and not do this or not do this or not do this.
Right.
Again,
So
thank
that's
you
why
for
I
being
say,
honest.
if you want me to put 7% in there and then bring you a budget, an operating budget, and say, here's how far in the hole we are, I can do that, and then we can back it off as we go. Do you know what I'm saying? I can front load the budget, which is kind of what we do each year. But what I will never do is recommend to you when it comes time for adoption, an operating budget that isn't balanced. I just can't get behind that.
Yeah.
Regardless of personal feelings of myself or you all, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So happy to put it in there.
I have a couple of comments.
Yes.
One is, we don't know where inflation's gonna be at the end of the year. It just came down. So that's one thought. The other thing I was noticing in the SIP financials that they presented in the packet tonight, they used 5% for their increases. So that's kind of where they're thinking, and that's kind of where I was thinking, because I said, well, we're just looking for something now to plug in to the beginning budget planning. And if we just went with something like 5% and gave it a couple of months to see how the economy shakes out, then we could always make an adjustment down the road before we approve the budget.
That's correct. We can do that.
And last year, did we do full raises or did we do the?
This year we did raises. Historically, we do a raise and a bonus and a raise and a bonus. Next year, I'm recommending a raise again if inflation stays where it is of some kind. Because I think a bonus, staff is absolutely happy with whatever you give us. And this, if we can afford a raise, I think next year should be a raise year. And again, we can go with bonus, because next year is supposed to be a bonus year.
Yeah.
But I am recommending an actual cost of some kind next year.
What if we did a combination year just because of uncertainty? Like, is it because, I mean, the concern is not just can we afford it next year, but on an ongoing basis, and who knows? And because our world has just been weird over the last 2 or 3 years, or some might say longer, if we did something where we did like a 3% cost of living adjustment and a 2% bonus or something, where it was a combined, and on an ongoing basis, we're a little bit safer. And then as we see how all of this shakes out, the end of the year and, things like that, like what personnel-wise, like would that be a viable thing to do?
I can put into the budget whatever we talk about tonight. And then we can figure it out really. I can put in whatever we need to. The official public hearing budget will go to the first meeting in October, and we'll be adopting the budget at the first meeting in December. So we have time. So if you want me to consider some type of COLA and then merit bonus, I can absolutely consider that as well.
Thank you.
Well, that's interesting what Betsy was saying, because I had wrote that down too, because I had kind of gone on their recommendation of like a 5%, somewhere between like 3.5 and 5%. This is just kind of an observation, but what the heck has gone on in your Ray? My goodness, their salaries are.
I will say, and I
Like, how did they get, do they have a bunch of revenue up there?
They do.
Oh, God, yes.
Their population or something in the summer.
Yeah.
Good Lord.
Sales
Sorry,
tax,
that
lodger's tax.
compared to you guys, like, let's get it going here.
Well, you know, the city of Cortez offered 5% raises to their staff this year. They actually, the city council actually just gave their city manager a 9.5% raise.
Wow.
I don't understand that, I don't agree with it.
Oh darn, we were gonna do that first.
Yeah, well, take that off the agenda.
Take that down then. No, but I'll get normal here, sorry. So, 5% was, that seems, if you could do the stats on that, that seemed to, what the article was talking about, and that seemed fair.
So if 5% is the consensus, what I can do is I can budget 5, because that's what we're gonna pay. So that's gonna go into the budget, and then if we need to figure out like COLA versus a merit versus a bone, whatever, we can do that later.
Okay.
But for my
Sure.
budget purposes for next meeting, if you want me to put in, if 5% is the consensus, I'll put in 5% and start there and see what happens.
And then from there, I'm sorry, Mayor. Then from there, do we then talk about the cost of living raise or the merit raise after that?
We can break it out or
Okay.
we can do whatever.
Okay.
We can figure out how to allocate the 5%. If 5% works, we can figure out how to allocate the 5%.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's exactly my question, because historically, cost of living is separate of the merit.
Correct.
So what we're saying here is the 5% is cost of living and merit. We're not saying 5% cost of living, merit is a totally different animal. That's my question. Because in the past, we've done a cost of living that's separate of the merit. So you can do, are we talking, I'm asking this, are we combining that as a total cost of living and merit potential? Are we saying cost of living 5%, merit we haven't even discussed? So does that, that's my question.
And that's what I was saying, yes.
The combination of the two.
Not combining them.
Not combining.
5%
No, I'm not-
cost of living, and then give us time to talk about it, see what the 5% looks like, plugged in, and see where the economy goes.
That's cost of living.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what are we going to allow for a merit increase?
she has to put in the budget.
Well, after
Because they both have to go in the budget. So are we talking a 5% cost of living? No, but it's something that we as a board have to look at, because if we say, okay, historically, we're giving between 3 and 5% for merit, and we're giving a 5% COLA, that's a 10% total. So we have to, this is for me to wrap my head around, because we're talking about COLA only.
Right.
But merit is something that gets on top of that.
Right.
Yeah.
So that, we have to look at what that grand total becomes.
Yeah.
Because in today's society, there's, I would love a 7% raise. I'd like a 2% raise.
I'd like a 3%.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. So that's why I'm asking, are we talking 5% total of merit and COLA? Are we talking 5% COLA only? Merit's a totally different animal, and that's an additional whatever that is, because we have to know that too.
Well, I think right now what we're talking about is 5%
Of what?
of their salary raise, and then how that breaks out, if it breaks out, we'll determine that later. But right now we're looking at kind of just chit-chatting a 5%.
COLA
Now,
merit.
is it part COLA, part
Right.
You know.
But a total of 5%.
Yeah, and because that's what we have to look at with the budget.
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
that's not what
I'm trying
Betsy's saying, but that's what I threw out there.
That's what
No.
I'm trying to figure out.
Right.
Cindy brought up the idea of combining them, and my original was, I thought Heather was just asking us for a number for cost of living.
Right.
We have to put
You know,
it in
because Colorado's.
But they both go in the budget, so.
I know, but she was just asking about where we thought the cost of living number should be.
Yeah.
And so my recommendation was 5.
Right.
We can talk about the other stuff.
Right. So we're all kind of talking 5. It's just, is that cost of living or is it a combination? So.
That's my question. Is it a combo or is it?
So that's a discussion for you all.
Yeah.
If we go with Janice and Betsy, I put 5% COLA in there, give it to you all, see if it works, and then we add merit later, if you're inclined. If I go with Cindy and Ed, I put 5% in there, and later we decide how to split it. I can do whatever you all ask. So if you want to tonight decide a total, I can put that in the budget as well. So I can go with either the COLA tonight, or I can, if you want to talk about merit, I can project that as well. Either, I can do whatever. In this instance, I can do whichever direction you guys ask me to go, I can go in that direction. So if you want to hear the whole number or COLA, I can do either one, and I can present with it.
I would say 5%. I mean, it's just numbers right now, right? So 5%.
5%?
So just put in 5%.
Let's take a look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So 5%.
Or if the economy turns around, then we'll up it.
Okay.
And we'll give it merit as well as it.
That's what I was saying.
I will just put in, I will budget 5%. You guys in 2 weeks will see personnel costs with a 5% increase, and we can tighten it up as we go.
Okay, moving right along to items for the August 24th, 2022 agenda. We have the 2023 operating budget. This workshop starts at 5:30. Ed just told me that he's going to be out of town for that meeting.
I changed my meeting to a week, pushed it back in Denver, so I will have to be in Denver for work.
And then you and Jamie are going to be gone, right? The 24th?
You got, that's what.
We got that email.
You got an email.
That's October.
October.
You put August. You put August.
No, you said October.
You said October.
Okay, well, you put August, and so that's, Queenie, I asked Queenie, is what's going on here?
So, yeah.
I apologize if I put August, it's October.
Okay, well, that makes more sense. I thought, great, we're gonna have a budget thing without you? Boy, are we gonna run amok.
Yeah, that would be such a bad idea.
Well, that's what was throwing me. It was like, I know I'm not gonna be here, but boy, this was gonna be a real tough one to deal with.
So we know at this point that Ed will not be here. Okay.
I apologize, but I gotta make a living.
And so then the next thing is the economic development incentives that Jason's working on. And
Jason's been working on that, so we're gonna present we've talked about that over the years, so he's been awesome, and he's gonna finalize that up for us, so that we'll be giving that to you guys next.
Good.
I don't have anything else.
Or something will come up.
The reason I don't have anything else at this time is because I really need to focus on budget for the next couple of months. Not that something may not come up, but I'm really trying to just focus on budget as we can.
No squirrels.
All right.
But I don't know if anybody else has anything to add.
Not at this point. All right, next thing is adjournment, and I would entertain a motion.
I make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, so moved. And it is 9:23, so